Welcome to the Paterfamilias podcast. My name is Adrian. I'll be your host. I will be doing these about once a week, usually on Mondays. I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of what I plan for these podcasts. I'm a Catholic who was born and raised in a very lax Catholic home. Strayed from the faith for a long while and came back about 6 years ago. I kind of read my way back in. That since then, I've made my faith life a very important part of my life, and I incorporate that with my family. It was not easy at first, but as time went on, as habits and virtues are sought after, it becomes easier. I see a large gaping hole in our communities for men to stand up and embrace suffering. And we need men out there who are willing to stand up and show other men or exhibit to other men what they can do to be able to embrace that suffering and be able to use it to better ends. So the goal of this, my whole intent for this endeavor, is to be able to share the lessons I've learned through my life, share the lessons I've learned through the many instances of my life where I have slowly been able to inculcate more tolerance or more what's the word I'm looking for? A more encouragement as well of being able to not look down on suffering or try to avoid suffering, but to embrace it and use it to better yourself. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I served 8 years in the United States Marine Corps. After the Marine Corps, I got out and I was a firefighter paramedic for about 5 years. And then after that, we moved, and I ended up finishing school, and I'm now in a entirely different aspect of my life, career-wise, where I didn't think I'd ever be. But me and my wife, we've been married for 13 years. Well, it'll be 13 years in September. We have 4 children, of which I make sure they know that our faith life and our community and our friends at our parish are going to be some of the most important aspects of their life, because a community is what allows you to be able to properly ground yourself into the will of our Lord. Going a little bit more into this as well, some of the things I'm going to be going over are some skills that I've learned, whether they be tangible skills or whether they be just theoretical skills. My time in the Marine Corps gave me some very nuanced and some very special skills that really help with being able to judge other people's future actions and motives, as well as being able to properly find out whether someone can be trustworthy or not, as well as some other more tangible skills that kind of are adjacent to those and support those. Some of the skills I'll be teaching as well is in the Marines. One of the things I did was I taught firearms instruction to other Marines, whether it be with a rifle or a pistol. And after the Marine Corps, I learned quite a bit more from civilian instructors than I ever did in the Marine Corps. In fact, there's one. He was a civilian after he got out, but he was a Special Forces Green Beret for I think like 22, 23 years, and I did quite a bit of training with him. And a friend of mine who did an extensive amount of training with him. We used to go out and do a lot of training together in South Georgia. So I'll be doing small things like showing y'all videos on techniques that I learned to be able to help with concealed carry, because every capable man and father should be concealed carrying. as well as other aspects of small little things I learned about how to prepare for your family, how to, uh, for example, this weekend, more than likely, I'm going to be putting in some rain barrels to collect rainwater. Um, because we are starting a garden here in our new home, and I want to be able to establish that. Now, there's going to be a lot of times that I'm stumbling through this because I don't perfectly know some of this stuff. So I'll even show videos of my failures and how I failed at things, so y'all can see that getting to learn how to do this is not going to give you the proficiency from day one. You have to fail to be able to do these things. Um, and some of you might be asking, well, I could just learn these things on YouTube. Yes, you can, and I highly encourage you to go do that. But sometimes it gives us a little bit of hope and a little bit of motivation to see someone else struggling through it, knowing that you may struggle through it as well, but that someone else has already been there, and you see the mistakes that they have made. Because normally when you see some of these videos or instruction videos or manuals, it's exactly how to do it every single time, but it doesn't show you what do you do when a hiccup happens. What do you do if you don't have the right tools? How can you modify it? So being able to see my struggles through some of these things, which I plan on showing as I'm learning how to do some of them as well, at least better than what I already know, but will be part of this as well. And some of you might be asking, why would I do a podcast like this? To be honest with you, I don't have the time to do this, but I'm going to make the time to do it because some of y'all need to be able to learn these things, to be able to protect your families, provide for your families. I've been deployed a number of times, and I've seen what happens when a society fails and how that affects the community and the family. I've seen how the inability for a father to provide for his family ends up destroying that father, whether emotionally or physically. And being able to get ahead of that before what a lot of us see is soon to be coming, will help you from being too downtrodden when those things come up. Because if you can mentally prepare for the bad things that are going to happen, it's going to not hit you as hard when it does happen. So I just want to kind of read you a letter. It's really an article by Selco. If none of you know who Selco is, Selco was a survivor of the Bosnian War. He provides his own SHTF training classes as well, and they're very good. I've read through them. I've learned quite a bit from it. And I do suggest that you go and check him out. He provides some very good information. He also provides some very good mindset of how to prepare yourself. So just to kind of get the ball rolling on what the kind of the motif of this podcast, I want to read his letter to you so you understand the area I'm coming from and the concern I have for other Catholic men and their families. This is 1 Year in Hell by Selco. I am from Bosnia. Between 1992 and 1995, it was hell. For 1 year, I lived and survived in a city with 6,000 people without water, electricity, gasoline, medical help, civil defense, distribution service, any kind of traditional service of centralized rule. Our city was blockaded by the army, and for 1 year, life in the city turned into total crap. We had no army, no police. We only had armed groups. Those armed protected their homes and families. When it all started, some of us were better prepared, but most of the neighbors' families had enough food only for a few days. Some had pistols, a few had AK-47s or shotguns. After a month or two, gangs started operating, destroying everything. Hospitals, for example, turned into slaughterhouses. There was no more police. About 80% of the hospital staff were gone. I got lucky. My family at the time was fairly large, 15 people in a large house. We had 6 pistols and 3 AKs. And we survived. Well, most of us at least. The Americans dropped MREs every 10 days to help blockaded cities. This was never enough. Some, Very few had gardens. It took 3 months for the first rumors to spread of men dying from hunger and cold. We removed all the doors, the window frames from abandoned houses, ripped up the floors, and burned the furniture for heat. Many died from diseases, especially from the water. 2 from my own family. We drank mostly rainwater, ate pigeons, and even rats. Money soon became worthless. We returned to an exchange. For a tin can of tushonka, it's like the Soviet spam, you could have a woman. It is hard to speak of it, but it is true. Most of the women who sold themselves were desperate mothers. Arms, ammunition, candles, lighters, antibiotics, gasoline, batteries, and food. We fought for these things like animals. In these situations, it all changes. Men become monsters. It was disgusting. Strength was in numbers. A man living alone could get killed and robbed. It would just be a matter of time, even if he was armed. Today, me and my family are well prepared. I am well armed. I have experience. It does not matter what will happen. An earthquake, a war, a tsunami, aliens, terrorists, economic collapse, uprising. The important part is that something will happen. Here's my experience. You can't make it on your own. Don't stay apart from your family. Prepare together. Choose reliable friends. Number 1. How to move safely in a city. The city was divided into communities along streets. Our street, 15 to 20 homes, had patrols, 5 armed men every week, to watch for gangs and for enemies. All the exchanges occurred in the street. About 5 kilometers away was an entire street for trading, all well organized. But going there was too dangerous because of the snipers. You could also get robbed by bandits. I only went there twice. When I needed something really rare, a list of medicine, mainly antibiotics, of the French original of the text. Nobody used automobiles in the city. The streets were blocked by wreckage and by abandoned cars. Gasoline was very expensive. If one needed to go somewhere, that was done at night. Never travel alone or in groups that were too big. Always 2 to 3 men. All armed, travel swift, in the shadows. Cross street through the ruins, not along open streets. There were many gangs 10 to 15 men strong, some as large as 50 men. But there were also many normal men, like you and me, fathers and grandfathers, who killed and robbed. There were no good and bad men. Most were in the middle and ready for the worst. Number 2. What about food? Your home city is surrounded by woods. Why did you burn doors and furniture? There were not that many woods around the city. It was very beautiful. Restaurants, cinemas, schools, even an airport. Every tree in the city and in the city park was cut down for fuel in the first 2 months. Without electricity for cooking and heat, we burned anything that burned. Furniture, doors, flooring. That wood burned swiftly. We had no suburbs or suburban farms. The enemy was in the suburbs. We were surrounded. Even in the city, you never knew who was the enemy at any given point. Number 3. What knowledge was useful to you in that period? To imagine the situation a bit better, you should know it was practically a return to the Stone Age. For example, I had a container of cooking gas, but I did not use it for heat. That would be too expensive. I attached a nozzle to it I made myself, and I used it to fill lighters. Lighters were precious. If a man brought an empty lighter, I would fill it, and he would give me a tin of food or a candle. I was a paramedic. In these conditions, my knowledge was my wealth. Be curious and skilled. In these conditions, the ability to fix things is more valuable than gold. Items and supplies will inevitably run out, but your skills will keep you fed. I wish to say this. Learn to fix things, shoes or people. My neighbor, for example, knew how to make kerosene for lamps. He never went hungry. Number 4. If you had 3 months to prepare now, what would you do? 3 months? Run away from the country. He's joking. Today, I know everything can collapse really fast. I have a stockpile of food, hygiene items, batteries. Enough to last me for 6 months. I live in a very secure flat and own a home with a shelter in a village 5 kilometers away. Another 6 months supply there, too. That's a small village. Most people there are well prepared. The war had taught them. I have 4 weapons and 2,000 rounds for each. I have a garden and have learned gardening. Also, I have good instinct. When everyone around you keeps telling you it'll all be fine, but I know it will all collapse. I have strength to do what I need to protect my family. Because when it all collapses, you must be ready to do bad things to keep your children alive and protect your family. Surviving on your own is practically impossible. That's what I think. Even you're armed and ready. If you're alone, you'll die. I have seen that happen many times. families and groups, well prepared with skills and knowledge in various fields. That's much better. Number 5. What should you stockpile? That depends. If you plan to live by theft, all you need is weapons and ammo. Lots of ammo. If not, more food, hygiene items, batteries, accumulators, little trading items like knives, lighters, flint, soap. Also, alcohol of a type that keeps well. The cheapest whiskey is a good trading item. Many people died from insufficient hygiene. You'll need simple items in great amounts. For example, garbage bags, lots of them, and toilet papers, non-reusable dishes and cups. You'll need lots of them. I know that because we didn't have any at all. As for me, a supply of hygiene items is perfect and is more important than food. You can shoot a pigeon. You can find a plant to eat. You can't find or shoot any disinfectant. Disinfectant, detergents, bleach, soap, gloves, masks. First aid skills, washing wounds and burns. Perhaps you will find a doctor and will not be able to pay him. Learn to use antibiotics. It's good to have a stockpile of them. You should choose the simplest weapons. I carry a Glock 45. I like it, but it's a rare gun here. So I have 2 TT pistols too. TT pistol is a type of Soviet pistol. I don't like Kalashnikovs, but again, same story. Everyone has them. So do I. You must own small, unnoticeable items. For example, a generator is good, but 1,000 Bic lighters are better. A generator will attract attention if there's any trouble, but 1,000 lighters are compact, cheap, and can always be traded. We usually collected rainwater in 4 large barrels and then boiled it. There was a small river, but the water in it became very dirty very fast. It's also important to have containers for water, barrels and buckets. Number 6. Were gold and silver useful? Yes, I personally traded all the gold in the house for ammunition. Sometimes we got our hands on money, dollars and Deutschmarks. We bought some things for them, but this was rare and prices were astronomical. For example, a can of beans cost $30 to $40. The local money quickly became worthless. Everything we needed, we traded for through barter. Number 7. Was salt expensive? Yes, but coffee and cigarettes were even more expensive. I had lots of alcohol and traded it without problems. Alcohol consumption grew over 10 times as compared to peacetime. Perhaps today it's more useful to keep a stock of cigarettes, of lighters, and batteries. They take up less space. At this time, I was not a survivalist. We had no time to prepare. Several days before the shit hit the fan. At this time, I was not a survivalist. We had no time to prepare. Several days before it hit the fan, the politicians kept repeating over the TV that everything was going according to plan. There's no reason to be concerned. When the sky fell on our heads, we took what we could. Number 8. Was it difficult to purchase firearms? What did you trade for arms and ammunition? After the war, we had guns in every house. The police confiscated lots of guns at the beginning of the war, but most of them we hid. Now I have one legal gun that I have a license for. Under the law, that's called a temporary collection. If there is unrest, the government will seize all registered guns. Never forget that. You know there are many people who have one legal gun, but also illegal guns if that one gets seized. If you have good trade goods, you might be able to get a gun in a tough situation. But remember, the most difficult time is the first days, and perhaps you won't have enough time to find a weapon to protect your family. To be disarmed in a time of chaos and panic is a bad idea. In my case, there was a man who needed a car battery for his radio. He had shotguns. I traded the accumulator for both of them. Sometimes I traded ammunition for food, and a few weeks later traded food for ammunition. Never did the trade at home, never in great amounts. Few people knew how much I had and what I keep at home. The most important thing is to keep as many things as possible in terms of space and money. Eventually you'll understand what is more valuable. Correction. I'll always value weapons and ammunition the most. Second, maybe gas masks and filters. Number 9. What about security? Our defenses were very primitive. Again, we weren't ready, and we used what we could. The windows were shattered and the roofs in a horrible state after the bombings. The windows were blocked, some with sandbags, others with rocks. I blocked the fence gate with wreckage and garbage and used a ladder to get across the wall. When I came home, I asked someone inside to pass over the ladder. We had a fellow on our street that completely barricaded himself in his house. He broke a hole in the wall, creating a passage for himself into the ruins of the neighbor's house, a sort of secret entrance. Maybe this would seem strange, but the most protected houses were looted and destroyed first. In my area of the city, there were beautiful houses with walls, dogs, alarms, and barred windows. People attacked them first. Some held out, others didn't. It all depended on how many hands and guns they had inside. I think defense is very important, but it must be carried out unobtrusively. If you are in a city and an SHTF comes, you need a simple, non flashy place with lots of guns and ammo. How much ammo? As much as possible. Make your house as unattractive as you can. Right now, I own a steel door, but that's just against the first wave of chaos. After that passes, I will leave the city to rejoin a larger group of people, my friends and family. There were some situations during the war, and there's no need for details, but we always had a superior firepower and a brick wall on our side. We also constantly kept someone watching the streets. Quality organization is paramount in case of gang attacks. Shooting was constantly heard in the city. Our perimeter was defended primitively. All the exits were barricaded and had little firing slits. Inside we had at least 5 family members ready for battle at any time, and 1 man in the street hidden in a shelter. We stayed home through the day to avoid sniper fire. At first the weak perish, then the rest fight. During the day the streets were practically empty due to sniper fire. Defenses were oriented toward short-range combat alone. Many died if they went out to gather information. For example, it's important to remember we had no information, no radio, no TV, only rumors and nothing else. There was no organized army. Every man fought. We had no choice. Everyone was armed, ready to defend themselves. You should not wear quality items in the city. Someone will murder you and take them. Don't even carry a pretty long arm. It will attract attention. Let me tell you something. If SHTF starts tomorrow, I'll be humble. I'll look like everyone else. Desperate, fearful. Maybe I'll even shout and cry a little bit. Pretty clothing is excluded altogether. I will not go out in my new tactical outfit to shout, "I have come, you're doomed, bad guys." No, I'll stay aside, well armed, well prepared, waiting and evaluating my possibilities with my best friend or brother. Super defenses, super guns are meaningless. If people think they should steal your things, that you're profitable, they will. It's only a question of time and the amount of guns in hands. Number 10. How was the situation with toilets? We used shovels and a patch of earth near the house. Does it seem dirty? It was. We washed with rainwater or in the river, but most of the time the latter was too dangerous. We had no toilet paper, and if we had any, I would have traded it away. It was dirty business. Let me give you a piece of advice. You need guns and ammo first, and second, everything else. Literally everything. All depends on the space and money you have. If you forget something, there will always be someone to trade with for it. But if you forget weapons and ammo, there will be no access to trading for you. I don't think big families are extra mouths. Big families mean both more guns and strength, and from there, everyone prepares on his own. Number 11. How did the people treat the sick and the injured? Most injuries were from gunfire. Without a specialist and without equipment, if an injured man found a doctor somewhere, he had about 30% chance of survival. It ain't the movies. People died. Many died from infectious or superficial wounds. I had antibiotics for 3 to 4 uses, for the family of course. People died foolishly quite often. Simple diarrhea will kill you in a few days without medicine, with limited amounts of water. There were many skin diseases and food poisonings. Nothing to it. Many used local plants and pure alcohol. Enough for short term, but useless in the long term. Hygiene is very important, as well as having as much medicine as possible, especially antibiotics. When I first read this article, it was probably 7 years ago. It lined up perfectly with what I'd seen in Afghanistan. If you could not protect your family, you would no longer have your family. A lot of prepper sites or survivalists or whatever you want to call them, they'll tell you you need to turn away people that you don't know. You need to keep enough food on hand for you and your family, and that if anyone tries to come to you, you need to be prepared to shoot them on sight and turn them away. I'm gonna go against that a bit. I think we need to prepare as Christians to be able to help our fellow man, and we need to be able to incorporate them and recruit them into our community to help each other. Now you're going to have some nefarious individuals who are selfish, who you will not want in your community. And at that point, it's good enough to give them 1 or 2 meals and send them on their way. But be prepared that they might come back with friends. So as long as you have a community, you will be a lot safer than if you are trying to lone wolf it and do it by yourself with your family. For example, I live in a neighborhood, and in my neighborhood, I've only lived here since October, and within 5 or 6 houses of me, we have 2 police officers and 4 veterans. I know they are all mostly on the same level as me, as far as being able to protect their families and being able to protect our community. They know that if you cannot provide security for 24 hours a day with the help of those in your community, then you're as good as dead. The issue with lone wolf type mentality is you cannot stay up for 24 hours a day forever. Someone else has to keep watch, and that's where the community comes in. Fatigue will set in eventually, and you'll need a good rotation of people. But also having the capability to survive that first 6 months of a societal collapse with food that you've stored. Something that gets you through a winter. Unless you're already got a garden going and you already know how to grow food stuff during the winter months, you're going to need something to get you through that winter, because that next spring is going to be very hard and very trial by error on getting a garden growing and being able to grow appropriate foods for your area and till the land and possibly trade for some chickens or something, or meat rabbits, if you don't already have them, because you're going to need to be able to provide for yourself and your family after that point. There would no longer be anything such thing as a grocery store to go to. You might have some small bartering going on when people have excess, but there will not be a store that you can just go and pick up what you need to make dinner that night any longer. And that's really comes down to what I want to do with this podcast is give my insight, the things that from where I've seen, and kind of show you me going through my lumps on learning some of this stuff myself as well, but also giving you some of the skills that I've learned to be able to help with more of the social aspect of things. And we might get into that later on, and if we ever get to the point where I want to bring on some colleagues of mine who do the same work, they can kind of give their aspect on it as well. But so far, this is going to be where this is going to be going. If you guys like what I'm doing, or you have any questions, or you may have some things you may want to see if I can go over, feel free to email me. My email is pfamilias, F-A-M-I-L-I-A-S, @protonmail.com, and I'll put it in the show notes as well. Thanks, guys.